Hey, hi, hello, I'm Super Dude, and thanks for coming to this video. So I just want to let you know up front that this is actually the second version of the video which has been made. In the original draft, in the second half of the video, I make an argument which the original commenters called deeply hypocritical. And I agree. So this version exists now. I didn't change what I wrote in the back half too much. I have added sections to point out where I'm being hypocritical, or I have some implicit bias which is causing me to react in a way which is deleterious to the argument. The original video is going to be in the description in case you want to see it, but this is basically the same thing, just with some clarifications on where I'm being an ass. And yeah, fight for the world you want to believe in. I will see you guys at the end. Well, no, I won't. It's past Super Dude the whole... Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. Can I be honest with y'all for a second? Though you wouldn't know it, because you don't personally know me, I've always maintained that Huniepop is a good video game whenever it comes up in conversation, which is more often than you'd think. It's weird how well known Huniepop is. At some point in my youth, after I became an adult and was out of the house, I finally had a laptop of my own with which to play games. And the first game I ever purchased for my Steam account was Enter the Gungeon, actually, back in 2016, though it wasn't actually the first game on the account. No longer story that one. I'll tell you it at the end of the video if you behave. But I bought a bunch of games that would work on the MacBook, and then the 14th game I bought was Huniepop. I mean, for $2.50, it was a deal. I couldn't afford not to, you know? It bought itself, basically. It was a purely economic decision, I swear. For those who don't know, Huniepop is a mashup of dating sims and tile matching games where the dates you go on are represented by puzzles, and you have a set number of moves to reach your apparent goal for this date, and therefore impress your lady friend. The game exploded onto YouTube soon after it came out, being played by multiple Let's Play people, including some of the big boys at the time, which is probably the reason why the game is so well remembered. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a good game and it deserves to be remembered fondly, but if anyone remembers the gameplay, it is a distant second place to the true draw of Huniepop, the memories. See, dating sim is a genre that this game falls under, but that's a bit of a cute term to describe what's going on here, because that implies something a bit more innocent than what Huniepop has in store for you. Dating is like getting to know someone, learning the likes and dislikes, perhaps even falling in love a little bit. And while you are going on dates constantly, that's not your goal here. Your character is on a singular mission, to get into the pants of every lady from here to the sea and eventually bang the goddess of love herself purely for the love of the game. But therein lies the question, which part of the game is the beloved part? I said everyone remembers Huniepop fondly, but why? Most people in the world remember this game from those Let's Plays, and some of those folks were definitely cashing in on a trend, but why did that trend happen at all? How many porn games ever became the trendy game of the moment in YouTube's entire history? Huniepop is special, and in returning to this game, I was smashed over the head with the realization on why that is. So sit back, relax, and welcome to my current gameplay obsession, a porn game, but not for the reasons you think. I say that because the obvious draw to Huniepop is the girls, right? And when I say the girls, we both really know what I mean by that, but the reality is that these are very thin characters with some shoddy-ass writing. The dating sim portion of the game is rather rudimentary. You simply ask questions of the ladies and give them gifts that they like, which the game heavily signals to you so you don't even have to think about what it is they like. Talking to them and choosing the option that they like most nets you honey, the resource needed to upgrade your skills for the tile matching portion, which is super important to manage effectively as the dates never, ever get any easier. You could also get the girls drunk to increase their honey production, which is a gross mechanic, but sure, why not? This portion of the gameplay loop represents the bulk of your interaction with these women, which tests your ability to pay attention to the questions you previously asked by bringing them back up and making sure you actually remember, and extrapolating what they like based on your previous outings with them, which just boils down to remembering their introductory scenes. Each introduction goes the same way. Two ladies act out their quirks in front of each other, they go their separate ways, and then Q swoops in, makes it weird, and you're told how to hit on this girl and work your way into her life. Given the true goal of the game, it's understandable that these characters are a little more than cardboard cutouts, but it doesn't make it feel any less skeevy. The writing is full of innuendo and lust, but that's to be expected. What I completely forgot in the near decade I've not played is how trashy the writing is, which is best represented in Q. Q is a love fairy, a Cupid-style figure, which in the world of Huniepop means she's a little kinky freak who sees people more for the sex they can provide than the people that they are. And some of the things she says are completely heinous, especially about the Black and Asian characters. Jesus Christ, Q, you can't say that about people! By way of example, Q says when meeting Lola that she's craving chocolate in the same way that you would a candy bar, because that's how the story treats these characters. Q is rather emblematic of the writing in general. She is your sexual mentor through the game, and it is her worldview that the game presents to the player and makes you embody. The idea that these women aren't people, but prospective mates on your campaign to separate every woman in town from her panties. And, you know, that's not exactly wrong in the sense that this is a video game and they're literally not real, but I'd like to pretend there's more to these characters than that, I guess. You play dating sims because you're trying to act out some amount of romance typically, so purely stripping out the character portions and making it fundamentally not matter because you're trying to get to sex, it's not my ideal. I was truly taken aback by how nasty this game could be at times, and that skeevy writing doesn't let up. But on the other hand, those puzzles, dude. The puzzles are some of the most interesting and enriching brain teasers of its type, maintaining a delicate balance between being rather complicated for a tile matcher while still being easy to understand. You need to earn a certain amount of points within the 20 to 30 moves you're allotted, and there are 4 different tile types to give you those points. Lock, meet key. Simple, right? Well, each of these tile types represents a different type of attractiveness: romance, talent, sexuality, and flirtation. And some girls find other qualities more attractive than others. Tiffany, your classic girl next door type, likes flirtation and dislikes sexuality, whereas her mother Jessie actually likes sexuality but dislikes romance. So automatically this changes the incentives behind which tiles you're picking. You choose your moves hoping to set up a connect 4 or 5 of the best tiles to get the maximum score possible. But even that won't be enough unless you get their passion up with these heart tokens. These increase your passion multiplier, increasing the effectiveness of every token across the board. And there's also joy tokens, which gives you extra moves, so can really save your run if the tiles aren't working in your favor. And sentiment, which acts as a currency that allows you to use board-altering items, which can literally be run-defining. The first date gift that I received for free on this save file gave me an extra move for every broken heart on the board. Oh yeah, there's also broken hearts. They're simply bad. Avoid them. And I soon after that got another gift that turns all broken hearts into joy tokens. The synergy of these 2 items was central to my strategy. Search the board for sentiment tokens, carefully avoid broken hearts, and then pop both gifts at once, gaining 3 to 5 extra moves from the broken hearts, and then make them all disappear in an instant. It was glorious! Though notably, this just increased my time to play the game. It didn't produce more points for me, nor did it increase my passion multiplier. The balance between getting sentiment for power-ups, increasing passion for score multipliers, matching those joy tokens since it never hurts to have more moves, and, oh yeah, scoring adds loads of complexity to your generic Bejeweled system. And I haven't even mentioned the fact that you can take any piece across the board and slide it anywhere else across the field. Most tile matchers have only a very minute method of interacting with the board, flipping 2 pieces to get a match. This puts a greater emphasis on seeing how cascading tiles will lead to combos. Setups are still very much possible, but you have less control overall. But it's also the case that games like Bejeweled have 5 tile types compared to Huniepop's 8, so board states are inherently more chaotic in Huniepop compared to its chaste contemporaries. This is likely the reason why you can exert such control over the board. You can move pieces anywhere along their axes, and as long as a match happens somewhere in the line, the move is valid. Use this to intentionally set up your next match, or to move broken hearts to a place that's safer while you create a safe method of removing them. The puzzles are fantastic, and all this complexity resulted in a game that I, without hyperbole, couldn't put down. It's interesting to look back on a game that is remembered for how odd and horny it was, and for the amount of YouTubers who ended up really enjoying it. But there's a very good reason why those YouTubers all played Huniepop nearly a decade ago. It's because it's a good video game. We, as the audience, remember the girls, the writing, and the art, but those YouTubers all spent time engaging with one of the best tile games I've ever played, and that's what was so captivating about it. And to think, I haven't even talked about the sex puzzles yet. But before that, given the nature of this video's topic, there's a good chance this video gets some amount of demonetization, perhaps even removed entirely, so I'm gonna have to ask you to subscribe, please. It's always helpful when you do so, and if you want to watch this video without ads, if it gets taken down or something like that, you could always do so on my Patreon. Most people who watch my videos aren't subscribed, so it's always good to check. And also on desktop, the button glows with rainbow colors when I say, you should subscribe. Isn't that something? Voice-to-text recognition software can be silly sometimes. Anyway, back to the video. In order to fulfill your carnal duty, you must take the girls out on a date 4 times, with the final one being at night. And after that final, successful date, you take them home to engage in an entirely different kind of puzzle. Now, one of my favorite topics to discuss around game design is how a game's mechanics can represent something within the story of the world. Mechanics meeting with story or intent to produce a certain experience in the player, an emotion or style of play that they're trying to evoke in you, and it's something that I'm basically always talking about. Huniepop, the director of the Huniepop games, must have sat down in front of a Bejeweled, Candy Crush, what have you, and thought to himself, how could I make these mechanics represent sex? And the result of that idea, and the results of all your dates up till this point, lead to this. A new puzzle with all the same parts but designed for an entirely new purpose. To put it simply, when you're getting matchy in the sheets, your point total decays constantly, which changes your relationship to these tiles a great deal. You gotta move, tile matching, darting around the board looking for more matches to keep up your streak, because it takes just seconds for the points from your measly little 3-pair to disappear, so you gotta get matching. This is a genius stroke of design for so many reasons. The normal date puzzles are modeling the idea of dating through the mechanics encouraging a certain behavior in the player. When dating for real, you're making sure to say the right thing, wondering when is the right time to give her your thoughtful gift, learning things about her, and demonstrating your interest. And Huniepop models that through careful consideration of the board state. But this, let's call it bedroom puzzle, is instead representing stamina. Gotta keep it going to the end, know what I'm saying? The other thing I love about this is this puzzle is so involved that it kind of defies the purpose of the game, in my opinion. To put it cleanly, this is a one-handed game. This is a scene where most of you youngins are gonna learn how to use the mouse with your left hand, you feel me? But the minigame is fast-paced, requiring you to dart around the board, matching everything you can, and any drop in performance is met with a free-fall of everything you've fought to achieve so far. It's a hilarious piece of design that this game, standing at the intersection of game design and porn, makes its most titillating scenes the most immediately demanding of your dexterity and attention. This is one of 2 reasons why I ended up making this video. It's just a very funny way to mess with your players' expectations, and confirms to me that no matter how trashy the writing or gross the implication of your gameplay goals, Huniepop really is a good video game. This is a game design joke, and I think it's a funny one. You're then given a piece of art that I'm definitely not going to show you, but if I had a note for the creator, more butts, please. You've made a very chest-focused game, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I would like more variety, please and thank you. And that's literally all there is to it. Once you've completed your sexual conquest, there is rarely a reason to revisit these women, so it's just on to the next lady in line. At the highest levels of efficiency, Huniepop becomes a time management simulator where you're carefully controlling when you date who and bagging a new babe every night to quickly ditch her for the next dame the following day. I've already said this, but it bears some repeating. The puzzles are great, but the incentives of the dating sim portion make you a callous sleazeball. Sure, some of these women would be okay with you sleeping around, but that's definitely not true of the more sensitive members of the cast. You're a liar and a cheater, and the game reinforces and encourages that behavior by making these women as paper thin as possible, by making it so easy to just not consider what it is about them that makes them different. If I remember their details, maybe I can gain some points from them, but otherwise, who cares about them, man? And that sucks. However, the next game of the series actually fixes a lot of those issues, which really surprised me. For one, Huniepop 2 came out 6 years later in 2021, and thus had some time to course correct on past sliminess, as well as to reflect the changing times. Scene girls are out, e-girls are in, so that's nice, I suppose. On the puzzle side, the games become even more complicated through the double date mechanic, which adds an extra layer of strategy based on which girls like which colors, and who has enough stamina to pull off the next move without exhausting themselves, knocking them out of the date for a small period of time. And if both of them are exhausted, the date just ends on the spot. Doesn't matter how many moves you have, it's over, you lose, good day, sir. On the dating sim side, talking to them now has a more tangible cost benefit that isn't just level up currency. As you get to know the ladies more, they'll reveal some of their baggage, which are modifiers that make the levels a bit harder to play based on their quirks and difficulties. While this sounds like a bad thing, it also allows you to bring more total gifts to the date, representing the fact that getting to know someone on a deep level can be scary, but can also be some of the most meaningful relationships you can make. Oh, and also you're going on double dates now, which obviously means the reward in this game is threesomes. Is this power creep? In a roundabout way, this kind of fixes some of the gross implications of dating some of the purer characters in Huniepop 1. Everyone here is on the same page. There's no false pretense of singular commitment. We're all down for some polyamory, and even the most girl next door archetypes match up with multiple other women, so everyone knows what this is about. Don't get me wrong, the game's still trashy. Q's been toned down a bit from the last entry. She doesn't spout racist objectification when meeting non-white women this time, but also Sarah Stevens exists. And I hate her. But overall, you're allowed more time to get to know these ladies, simply because there are more total interactions happening in the game. Time to understand their personalities, learn their baggage, and dare I say it, care about them? Like, the writers actually attempted to add some pathos to some of these characters, the key example that I can think of being Polly. Polly's a makeup YouTuber, and an old-fashioned girly, with all of her outfits depicting different decades of fashion. And she is also a trans woman. And her interactions with Zoe show her opening up about her prior gender dysphoria. She was bullied a lot for who she was, and that pain lingers to this day. Zoe and Polly become attracted to each other through this heart-to-heart, where Zoe validates who Polly is, and Polly does the same in return. And I was honestly, legitimately floored. I'm not sure what to think about Polly's presence in this game with regards to her sexual organs. The fact that you can choose was... I didn't know and don't know how to feel about it. But for the character of Polly, an attempt was made to be sensitive to the struggles of trans women and make the player sympathetic to her struggles, which is more than I can say for any character in the original game. Huniepop 2 says trans rights. Hell fucking yeah. There's a similar turn for Jessie, opening up to the player and Abia about how aging out of the porn industry is a real moment of crisis. In an industry where your looks are everything, you can only do the work for so long before you're discarded for fresh meat. The difficulties of working in the porn industry, commented on in a porn game, it's great to see. In summation, this is a good game. I legitimately couldn't stop playing these puzzles and then getting flashbanged by porn when it would appear. Honestly, I love the puzzles. No joke, love the puzzles. So then the porn would appear and I would be like, get out of here. The writing can be anywhere from, oh, cool, to downright atrociously awful. But anyone who says the puzzles are bad is just straight lying to you. On the merits of gameplay alone, Huniepop is an inspirational game, and that is the real reason why all those YouTubers played this game nearly a decade back. Sure, it was trendy, but you don't play the entirety of a game because of a trend. You only do that if you had a lot of fun doing it. So, I can't believe I'm saying this, but maybe pick up the newest Huniepop while you still can, because there's something captivating about this game, for the gamers and the gooners. Besides, it's decently cheap and goes on sale for modest prices on Steam, GOG, itch.io. Wait a second! Hi, it's Super Dude, and welcome to the actual point of the video. So, let me be honest with you. As I said in the beginning, I have long maintained that Huniepop was, and now I can confidently say is, a good video game. But I only revisited Huniepop because recent events have made it clear that games like this are in a bit of a different class compared to your average Marios or Call of Duties. There has been a conveniently coordinated push by various political organizations and lobbyists and political parties off of the backs of the recent legal ruling which makes payment processors legally culpable for anything illegal purchased under their service. So if, say, certain types of pornography were banned in your country, your government would charge you for owning it, the other person for selling it, but also MasterCard, Visa, or whatever payment processor you used to buy it. This has had the effect of making payment processors, this middleman entity that connects banks to the actual businesses, and without which the infrastructure of our current digital landscape would not function, into a political organization. These payment processors went to Steam and itch.io and pressured those companies into removing some offending games from their service, and then they did so, with varying degrees of severity. If you want to hear a more in-depth telling of the facts here, please go watch Lextorias' video on the subject. It is well researched and well reported, and the music goes weirdly hard for a video about business politics. I really do encourage you to watch his video, because what he's doing is fundamentally different than this. His is investigative reporting with a side of opinion, and this is persuasive essay with a side of investigative reporting. off of the backs of various articles that have already been written up on this sort of thing. His is much more rigorous. This is persuasion. That is news, essentially. And again, very well reported. I can't recommend it enough. The previously mentioned law change is the reason for this quick rush towards video game censorship, but that was just fuel to the fire. The actual spark that started this was a game called No Mercy, a fetish game that simulates rape. Obviously awful. And the games that were removed from Steam are similarly fetishistic material. Games about incest, rape, bestiality, hypnotizing, which those last three things are just different scenarios to describe rape. All of this material has been removed from Steam in droves in an attempt to appease payment processors. Now, I want to point something out about this list. Notably, no one's defending No Mercy, right? Removing these games is probably a good thing, but the way it's being done suggests a slippery slope problem. Steam is being pressured by outside forces to moderate its not safe for work content, and though it chose to remove some obviously rotten eggs, it is the payment processors who are deciding here, not Steam. Hey, it's Super Dude from the future. I just want to stress that what I just voiced is an implicit bias coming forward as a explicit one. To state it plainly, I have a really hard time with sexual violence in media, an extreme revulsion to it, if you will, and that means that for me personally, I hate it, and I never want to see it, I don't want to be around it, but does that mean that it shouldn't exist? No. And does that mean that the entire world should ban it because of my particular hangups with it? Again, no. There's a difference between my personal feelings on a piece of art and my feelings on whether or not it should exist. If I could rewrite that video from the beginning, I wouldn't say removing these games from Steam is probably a good thing, because it muddies the point I'm trying to make, and my opinion on policy is different from my opinions on art, or at least they should be, and I apologize for that. Besides, this is actually the ideal scenario. If you want to see the worst case, look over at itch.io, an indie game website that removed literally all of its not safe for work video games. Everything and anything with a horny bone in his body is delisted, under threat of being removed permanently, and Itch recently released a list of topics that, moving forward, they simply will not allow. This list includes non-consensual content, underage or barely legal, incest or pseudo-incest, no, step-siblings are going to get you out of this one, bestiality or animal-related. This one's particularly heinous in its wording because, furries. That's just all of the fur content. All of it's in jeopardy now. Cool. Rape or coercion, you can tell that this was made on short notice because that's literally just the first bullet point again. Sex trafficking implications, revenge porn or hidden camera, and any fetish stuff involving bodily waste or extreme harm. You'll note that while some of this is illegal, and you'd hope that underage stuff was never on Itch in the first place, some of this is just fetish material. Like, scatological content might not be for you and me, but it's not illegal. And that means this is a value judgment passed down from the payment processors. Itch.io says as much in their new FAQ. The card processors don't like body fluid stuff, so it's not allowed on Itch, sorry! I'll also point out that this is a non-exhaustive list, which means that there are some invisible mines out in the field that you could fall onto and get your game taken off the platform, unless of course you specifically pay attention to Pretty Princess PayPal and Payoneer's terms and conditions. Have fun reading those documents, I guess. Anything more than Christian Conception Simulator may be hard to justify to the processors. And do you really want to make your porn when it could never see the light of day? When you previously were depending on it to pay the bills and now, who knows? To say nothing of the fact that because this is a non-exhaustive list, if the payment processors decide to change what not safe for work means, there is no recourse. This is why I earlier called them a political organization now. They decide policy, and there is no recourse for anyone else. Steam and Itch just has to enforce what they tell them to do. And who is behind those decisions, I wonder? I'm sure we won't get into that later. All of this uncertainty obfuscates what is and is not permissible, and makes the livelihoods of artists who make not safe for work games deeply uncertain. A squeeze on this portion of the video game market with the intent on killing off the industry. And if you think that's a presumptuous thing to say, think again. Collective Shout is the name of the group behind Steam and itch's recent policy changes, and they have a storied history of pulling these sorts of stunts, like trying to ban Detroit Become Human and Grand Theft Auto 5 in their home country of Australia, and they are actually the people responsible for getting No Mercy kicked off of most platforms. But their goals don't stop at non-consensual porn games. They are currently petitioning to have any and all pornographic content removed from X, which is significantly further than just removing the incest simulators, you'll note. Because at the end of the day, what defines not safe for work? We've been talking about Huniepop, which is an out-and-out porn game, but what about Grand Theft Auto, with its strippers, drugs, and hot coffee? This is one of the games Collective Shout tried to ban, so through their actions, they've already told us their thoughts on the matter, and by that logic, any M-rated game with sexual content on the label is out. Or how about I Wanna Be Your Blank and Penny Larceny, Gig Economy Supervillain, developed by Milk Boy and Fiction Factory Games respectively, two completely safe-for-work video games that were caught up in itch.io's sweeping ban? It's odd that these games were caught in the crossfire despite being squeaky clean, though that may have something to do with the fact that these titles featured lesbian romances. Can you believe it? Or a game like Gendirect, a post-apocalyptic gender punk game that explores themes of transness and gender identity, because any trans person could tell you that on social media, the experiences of trans people are far more likely to be marked as not safe for work than any one cis person doing the exact same thing. Collective Shout follows plenty of trans exclusionary influencers on X, so they're sympathetic to the cause of trans erasure as well. If they got their way, so does J.K. Rowling, and this game goes in the not safe for work bin as well. This is the slope I'm referring to. Steam may remove No Mercy, and itch might remove Huniepop, but there are people out there who think Dream Daddy belongs in the same boat. Games featuring queer characters who, don't get me wrong, it's a dating sim that can get a little steamy, I guess, but I must emphasize the little part. They don't have a problem with romance, they have a problem with gay. People argue for these changes under the Think of the Children moniker, but that's bullshit. Parental controls exist. Hell, parents exist who need to use their best judgment. Rating boards tell you what a game has in it, and recommendations based on age, you barely need to use your brain. The only time you need to think is when the kid's playing an indie game on the likes of itch or Steam, and that just means you'll need to do some research and come to your own conclusions. But in case you need to hear this from me, queer people simply existing isn't not safe for work. The concept of someone being different from the norm isn't some radical idea that kids need to be shielded from. We are all different. And for some of us, it's baked right into our bones. I am autistic. I have been all my life, and it majorly colors how a person like me walks through the world with a different perspective than most people. Imagine if I made a game about autism, or in fact a video on autism as I have before, and then some bastards come along and said, my neurodivergence is too radical for children to understand, and then went on an elaborate campaign to make it impossible for games or videos about autism to exist. This is that. Exploring oneself through art is a human process, queer or otherwise, and reactionary weirdos shouldn't be able to stop you from making your art, just as payment processors shouldn't have a say in your buying it. I will concede that some art is damaging and morally reprehensible, and I think Steam probably should have known better than to accept the likes of No Mercy in the first place, but Future Super Dude, once again stressing that this is a stupid point that I'm making. Like, I might not like a game or its content, but it still deserves to exist, even if I don't like it. For example, I don't like No Mercy, but Collective Shout hates LGBT games, so which deserves to be banned, do you think? No Mercy or Penny Larceny? The answer is neither. Currently on screen is a comment from the original version of this video discussing my mistakes and some of the reasons why people enjoy non-consensual porn games. These games can be helpful, cathartic, healing, or a tool for venting frustrations, and as someone with no psychological education, it's not my place to judge these people for what they like. It is a huge mistake of the original version of this video that I failed to properly separate these two spheres. My opinions on a game, whether I love it, hate it, or think it's damaging to reality, shouldn't influence policy, whether or not it literally can exist. But we all have our biases, and the comments in that first video very much pointed out that I am biased. So, I thank you for the chance to learn from my ignorance, and here's hoping I never do that again. But I will, because I'm human, most likely, but I'll try. Anyway, back to the video. I will concede that some art is damaging and morally reprehensible, but there are stories worth telling that deserve to exist, even if they're sexually charged. Furs should get to make their art, even if it ain't for you and me, and even if it's horny. Queer people should tell their stories without having to worry about the slope sliding. And also, I should state it plainly, porn isn't an inherent evil. There is value in creating something that people like to get off to. I'm a white guy with a lot of Christian guilt ingrained in me from childhood. I'm not the champion this topic deserves, but porn has a right to exist, based purely on the merits that people enjoy it. And in the case of Huniepop, this is a game with a lot of value. The writing can be weird and trashy, but sometimes it's fun to experience a kinky concept in the safe space of a fictional world. Like a raging drug addict who's self-destructive and mean to everyone around her. You should never date anyone like that in real life, but it can be thrilling to explore such thing in a video game, and that's a good thing. Better than meeting the real-life Audrey and potentially ruining your life. And also, of course, this is actually the best damn tile-matching puzzler I've ever played, and the sequel does more with it, makes it even more complex. Huniepop is a fantastic game, and it always was. But there are people out there who threaten these valuable pieces of design purely because they're not safe for work. Payment processors shouldn't be payment deciders. You should be able to buy what you want to buy. And barring stuff that's literally illegal, nobody should be able to prevent you from spending your money. In terms of what could be done to fight back against this change, there's actually a lot of people up in arms right now, and a couple of different campaigns exist to put pressure on those payment processors, which is something Lextorias goes into a bit of detail about near the end of his video on the subject. Again, if you didn't heed my call to action earlier, I will once again recommend you hop over to his video and pick up on some of the context of why we're here and look over the resources he's collated on what can be done about this, which I will copy in the description below, but it is a fantastic video. And that's really it from me. The world continues to slide deeper into uncertainty, and there are many groups from across the globe who are trying hard to censor the internet writ large. And we shouldn't let that happen without a fight. For as long as it's possible, play these games, squirrel them away on your hard drive, and support the art that you want to exist. I'm not the champion this topic deserves. Huniepop was the only porn game I owned before this, and I bought the second one for this video. But the line between safe and not safe for work is intentionally blurry. And if these activist groups succeed, we may see games about identity painted over with the same brush. Porn isn't an inherent evil. And if we don't want Collective Shout and their allies to have their way, we must come together and shout louder than the reactionaries. The payment processors are already getting agitated by the amount of noise, so let's keep it up. Hopefully this is something we can change for the better. And that's really all I have for the video. I guess I'll put this green screen down and then come back. Unfortunately, I have no better conclusion for you because this is something that's happening right now. As of writing this script, I think it's been 29 days-ish since this all got started with Steam. So, yeah, that's it. I hope that things change for the better, but that's not going to happen if we sit on our hands. As I keep saying over and over in all the videos I've been making recently, you gotta fight for the world you want to believe in. That's not what I'm saying at all. You gotta fight for the world you want to live in. There you go. Since you made it to the end, thanks for that by the way, here's a cookie for the wait, I will now tell you the story of the first game I ever had on my Steam account. I originally recorded this live with everything else, but I tend to ramble a lot without a script, so here's the scripted version. So I'm a freshman in high school, talking to this cooler football fellow after my marching band performance, and he gets to talking about this little game called Dark Souls. Maybe you've heard of it? I was aware of the game's infamy as a game so hard it makes people belligerent at this point, but I hadn't personally played it, and this guy was like, "Oh dude, you gotta try it out, it's insane," and then goes on to tell the story of our school's quarterback playing the game, which I will now share with you here. So, my friend, who for the purposes of this story I will call Justin, is sitting in the living room of his house, doing his own thing, when he hears this strange noise coming from the quarterback's room. I'm gonna try to recreate it. It sounded something like, which, you know, is alarming. So, Justin went to check on QB and found a room in absolute chaos. QB had been trying to beat some boss and was having a really terrible go at things, having lost a double-digit number of times, and with this final loss, he just snapped. He was tensing his whole body in a fit of rage, and it turns out that this has some consequences. First went the controller. QB was tensing his hands so hard that, according to legend, the analog sticks were smashed into the controller, which somehow destroyed the triggers, bursting them out of what is now just a mangled piece of plastic. Next went QB's faculties. Something in his digestive tract spasmed, and he just started puking all over himself. Recall that he's squeezing every muscle in his body. And it is at this point that Justin gets to the door, and he sees the most pivotal member of our football team smashing the controller into the ground while puking all over himself and everything else in the room. I don't know if this story is true. In all likelihood, it was probably something that Justin just made up for my benefit, but when I heard that, I said, I gotta try that game out, and I've been playing ever since. I joined an online forum that talked pretty exclusively about Souls games at the time, and not long after, they held a sweepstakes to give away some free copies of the brand new Dark Souls 2, with the prize going to whoever's story the judges liked the most. The prompt? What made you a fan of the Souls games? So I shared that story, talked about the trials and tribulations I faced playing those games, and I actually freaking won it! There was a notice in my email that I had won, and I would receive a Steam copy of Dark Souls 2 once the game had come out, which was a little unfortunate for me because I didn't actually own a PC. I had a boxy dial-up machine that barely ran YouTube videos. There was no way I could play Dark Souls on it. So I created a Steam account purely to put Dark Souls 2 into it, where it lay dormant for years. Even when I was in college and playing games on the PC, I just had a MacBook. Still couldn't play Dark Souls 2. I would only get around to playing Dark Souls 2 on the PC 8 years later, in 2022. And honestly, good game. Gets a bad rap, but I think it's pretty good. It's trying things. And that's the story of the first game I ever had on my Steam account. One of my highest anticipated games of 2014, and I couldn't play a lick of it. Well, at least not on the PC. I ended up buying the collector's edition on Xbox. Anyway, that's the video. I am Super Dude. Thanks for listening to my non sequitur story, and I thank you for watching. See you. Love you. Bye.